What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Bad League content. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at one of my strongest, best teams for the single type cup, taking a look at Primeape in this meta. So let's take a look at this team, look at these battles, jump right into it. We're going to get Cofagrigus on the lead versus Machamp. I don't think you could ask for a better lead, honestly. It's actually really good. But let's take a look at this team here. So we get a Charm Shadow Grand Bull, and this is like one of the scariest things you could ever see. Honestly, because there's nothing here that resists Charm, and the Primeape absolutely cannot come in against this. So, as terrifying as it is, try to get shields off the Grand Bull. And honestly, that's the name of this team, the whole name of the game here, right? We're trying to get shields so that Primeape can one-shot anything it wants to. And I did get this team idea. So the original team had Meganium over Primeape. I got the idea from Human Catch-A-Bug, which is a fellow content creator, excellent battler over on his YouTube. You should go check him out. And I mean, he's probably one of the best battlers I've seen on YouTube to date. So definitely worth looking into his content. He's actually where I got the idea, the skeleton of the team from. My opponent is now shields down. Cofagrigus comes back in here. The opponent has Clefable. My Cofagrigus is ahead on energy, and the opponent is running Charm. This is very scary because Primeape is very frail. What we're going to see, if we can, all I have to do here is farm down. I have a shield, so my opponent really can't throw energy. I can farm down this, farm down the Clefable, and then you all see what's coming. This Machamp is going to need a close combat, and this is why I like Primeape in the single cup. One shots the Machamp and takes him out, and that's going to be a good game. Well played. So we're going to have a little Momola on the lead for the next game here. And so I'm going to go straight into my Samurott because I resist the waterfalls, and I'm going to start building on energy. And a tip that makes this team work is the Samurott safe swap. As from Human Catch-A-Bug himself, he mentioned in his video that if Samurott gets about 4 or more Fury Cutters advantage, it can basically get both shields or win switch against just about everything in the meta. So that's why it's such a strong pick, and I really love this safe swap. The more I've used it, the more comfortable with it I've gotten. I think it's incredible. So essentially, like we said, we're trying to get shields down for Primeape. I don't necessarily need to win switch all the time here, but it's certainly nice if I can. But if I can get farm on Primeape and shields down, I'm in a really good position here. And then it's just, we're going to come in here. I'm actually going to farm down this Cofagrigus, or farm down this Vigoroth with my Cofagrigus, because that energy is going to be impactful, and I can tank one Bulldoze, and I'm willing to shield a second, because they're going to get to one if it means I can leave with 100 energy on my Cofa. So we're going to shield up here, and then the Bulldoze is going to get the shield, so we do get a good shield there. Farm all the way down, and the opponent is going to come back in, probably, here, with either there's an Umbreon in the back, or they're going to come in with the lead. So they're going to come back in with the Momola. We're going to clap that thing, but it's just going to 1 HP. So what I should have done here was I should have done one Shadow Claw and then throw the Shadow Ball. That would have allowed me to not have to tank that Psychic, and then I would have been in a much better spot here. So my opponent comes in with a Ninetales, Kanto Ninetales, and I make a very big mistake here. I decide to stay in to try and get their last shield, which allows them to farm up a ton of energy. Now, normally they carry Overheat. I'm hoping that they're not an Overheat, but they're going to be an Overheat. So right now I'm trying to swap in, do a little bit of counter damage, and then farm down with my Cofagrigus. But unfortunately, my opponent knows all too well what my plan was, and they overheat me. And unfortunately, that's going to be a good game. Could have won that one if I was paying a little bit better attention, but I don't know. I haven't played that match about enough to know how much damage everything does. So we get a Blastoise. So with every water lead, we're going to swap into the Samurott, and they're giving me a huge energy advantage. So I'm going to take advantage of that and go for the Mega Horn here. I'm either going to get a shield off this Blastoise, or it's going to do a lot of damage to him. And does the damage? I was kind of hoping for a shield, to be honest. But if the opponent lets me continue to gather up energy, I'm going to be able to go for a Hydro Cannon or have a lot of energy loaded for whatever comes in here. My opponent does go for the Hydro Cannon. I do shield it only because it's potentially a Skull Bash. I don't want to tank that. My opponent makes a really interesting move here. They come in with a Kanto Ninetales against my Samurott, which is loaded. Excuse me, I got something in my throat today. Good thing I got water. Stay hydrated, folks. Speaking of being hydrated, this Kanto Ninetales is about to get hydrated. Oh no, they had 2 shields. Man, that's awkward to do that during a recording. Have something in your throat. That's not good. Anyway, Cofagrigus comes in, gonna shield the potential overheat, I think. I just want to get this damage off, right? So where the Shadow Ball is gonna do a lot of damage to the Ninetales, not quite gonna be able to take it out here. And man, this is persistent. Weather Ball doesn't KO the Cofagrigus, but Cofagrigus is able to hang on. It has a little bit of residual energy. The opponent's got a Sand Slash here, and I'm looking at a very strong win con here, so I don't have a choice but to let them get to a move, but I do choose to, even if I had had my switch timer up, I would have certainly gone in to try and goodness, I can't speak and I can't think. I was going to let them throw that Night Slash to get rid of my Cofagrigus, even if my switch clock was up, because then I can farm up close combat that Sand Slash and take that game. Now, what I was looking to do there was potentially catch the Earthquake, but the opponent decided to catch first, so it's fine with me. Shadow Dragonair lead. So I stay in here a bit because I can't really swap in my Samurott because it's doing resistant damage versus a ton of Dragon Breath damage. So we're going to go for the Dark Pulse here and look to get the first shield. And if they do decide not to shield this, that's a good situation as well, because I can either farm down or I can just let this next move go and farm down with something else. Farm on Samurott is super strong in this cup because not a whole lot of things can just take a Hydro Cannon or a Mega Horn. So unfortunately, I'm going to go down with that Dark Pulse. I don't quite get there, so I'm going to look to come in for an aggressive farm down with my Primeape. I'm thinking that they've probably got Muck or some Poison type, some Anti-Charm in the back. I was also considering that they might have a Fire type, which is, again, an answer to Charm and Registeel. So my opponent comes in with the Ninetales, and I probably should have just gone straight for a... should have just gone straight for the close combat there. I count up to 6 Embers. My opponent throws a Weather Ball, which I catch on my Samurott. I'm trying to draw out whatever they've got in the back there. And I'm going to farm up until about just before their 6th Ember, right before they get to the Weather Ball. I'm going to throw my Hydro Cannon to force them to either shield or lose their Ninetales, which they let it go. And whatever my opponent's got in the back probably doesn't much care for Samurott. They have a Blastoise with the swag glasses in the back. And I'm going to go straight for this Mega Horn. And I'm either going to get shielded or do a ton of damage to this Blastoise. We do a lot of damage to the Blastoise. And we're just going to continue to farm down here. I'm going to go for this Hydro Cannon. My opponent makes an absolutely awesome, insane catch. Very nice timing and counting on their part. Counting those one-turn moves is very difficult to do. But they need 2 moves to KO, and they're not going to get there before the Fury Cutters farm down. So good game. Moving into the next game, we're going to have Cofagrigus against Registeel. So Registeel is not too bad here. I would prefer not to have my Samurott against it at any point. Cofagrigus is doing pretty good here. So I'm going to go straight for a Shadow Ball right on 8 Shadow Claws, which is going to CMP tie them on their Zap Cannon. Thankfully, whatever was in my throat is gone because I can speak fine now, which is great. So I'm going to no-shield the Zap Cannon. I know that this is not going to really come close to KOing me here. I do have plenty of HP left to deal with this matchup afterwards, and thankfully I don't even get an attack drop. So that works, and then I'm going to look to CMP tie them again on their Zap Cannon, and this Shadow Ball should get a shield here. As it does, the opponent immediately goes into a Muck, so I can stay in because I'm resisting the Poison Jab damage and fire off a Shadow Ball at the last second. My opponent, I believe, has a little bit of energy on the Registeel, so I have to be cautious of that. My opponent could have Thunder Punch here as well, so I have to respect it. They do indeed have Thunder Punch. That would do a lot of damage to Samurott. I'm looking to get a Hydro Cannon off here, do some chip damage, and I think the ultimate thing here is that there's either going to be double poison in the back or potentially maybe a Ninetales, something that maybe doesn't really appreciate taking a close combat or Hydro Cannon. So they come and go for the for the Zap Cannon, and I'm going to over farm as much as I can until they would get to about a Focus Blast. It's about 13 or 14 Fury Cutters, and then I'm going to let loose the Hydro Cannon, and the opponent's going to come in with a Sand Slash. The cancel Sand Slash is weak to water, and that's why it didn't come in. Primeape doesn't even need to see the field in this game. Samurott's putting in all the work, able to do a ton of damage to that Sand Slash, and just before they would get to the Earthquake, I'm able to fire off another Hydro Cannon, and that's going to take this one good game to my opponent. So we're going to hit into the next game here. We've got Cofagrigus and Umbreon. This is a terrible lead, and I've hit my stride in this commentating, and I'm out of flow now, not that I have nothing in my throat. So I'm going to go straight into the Samurott. My opponent comes in with a Charm Grand Bull. Charm Grand Bull is just a pain, but at least I know that this thing is squishy, and by this point, I could get both shields easily. And Cofagrigus would not have a great farm down opportunity here because of how much health the Grand Bull has, but at least if this is their only fairy in the back, then I'm looking good. I don't know what this person would do if they were to see a Registeel lead. That would be terrifying, but I mean, I guess everybody does their thing. So I have to shield this, and then I'm going to go for as many Shadow Claws as I can before I take too much charm damage. At this point, I've lost switch, so my Cofagrigus' energy is not extremely relevant here. So I'm not really in a need to over farm or anything. What I'm looking to do here is preserve a little bit of HP on my Cofagrigus, but really want to let my I want to let my Primeape come in here and just shred this Ninetales and this Umbreon. With a shield, this is going to be an easy 1-2 punch. Close combat's going to take out the Ninetales, and then we're going to come in, and the Umbreon only has a little bit of energy. I've got a shield, and I don't need to shield. I don't need to shield this if it's a foul play, but I need to make sure that I don't take a Psychic or something, especially with a defense drop. But close combat is going to come through. We're going to hit this Umbreon, and then that's going to do a lot of damage. Takes out Umbreon, and that's a good game. Well played. Primeape sweeping the back line there. And the front line, honestly. Alola back in the lead once again. I've seen too many of these things. I'm surprised people are running this fish. I mean, if you have it, I guess by all means. Mine is still single moved from the Love Cup several years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and land a bunch of damage onto this thing, and my opponent is going to counter my Samurott with a Umbreon. My opponent may not know that I have running Mega Horn on my Samurott, so they're going to be surprised here when they get that damage. That's a lot of damage. And now they're going to have to start shielding up these Hydro Cannons, which are going to come a lot faster. And there's the shield, so we're not going to have to shield this first move either. Even could be a Psychic or Last Resort. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to come near to KOing. It's actually running Dark Pulse. Very interesting moveset choice by my opponent. I haven't seen too many Dark Pulse Umbreons in the Great League. Typically, they just run the foul play for the spammier moveset. But I'm going to count up as many of these Snarls as I can. Make sure that I'm throwing my Hydro Cannon right before my opponent gets to another Dark Pulse here, as the Dark Pulses are squarely at 4. And I left with just enough energy that I should be able to get to another Hydro Cannon before the opponent can take me out here. But they come in with a Haxorus, and I believe it was running Dragon Tail, which is dangerous. Hydro Cannon does a lot of damage because Haxorus is pretty squishy. So right now, we're in a great position here. Cofagrigus can come in, it can deal with this, it can soak up the energy if it needs to. I'm not really looking to finish the game with the Cofagrigus, I'm looking to finish with the Primeape. So I take that damage, I'm going to come in with my Primeape, I'm going to counter down, and then the opponent comes in with the Molan, because I know that it takes like 7 waterfalls to get to a Psychic. I can easily go for 2 Night Slashes here and KO this fish. We're going to KO the fish. And if I see another one of these things, I'm just calling it fish. That's it. So we're going to counter down, and that's going to be a good game. Well played. Going into this next game, we're going to have Cofagrigus mirror lead. What I like to do here is I like to throw the Dark Pulse right away. I want to find out which Cofagrigus wins CMP, because that's going to tell me a lot. Now, my opponent goes for another Shadow Claw here, and I've seen about 50-50 where they go for the extra Shadow Claw. Doesn't really matter, because we are going to CMP on the next Dark Pulse anyway. So one of us is going to lose our second shield, and regardless of whether I win or lose CMP in this situation, I'll let the Dark Pulse go. My opponent wins CMP, what I'm talking about here. Now, I could win Switch here if I want to. But my opponent very well could save that shield, and I would rather have a shield for my Primeape. My opponent comes in with the Registeel, and I've got a Primeape locked and loaded in the back of the back line here, just to destroy this thing. And even though my opponent has Cofagrigus in the lead, they're not going to appreciate me having these Night Slashes. So what I'm looking to do here is I'm looking to overload on energy, because I know how to abuse a Registeel for energy. I'm going to throw a Night Slash, and I'm going to counter down, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to have 2 Night Slashes ready to go for the Cofagrigus when it comes back in, which it does. 1 Night Slash, 2 Night Slash. My opponent knows what's going to happen. They probably had Umbreon or something in the back, and that's going to be a good game. Whatever was in the back did not appreciate a Primeape that knew how to handle some energy. So we've got Cofagrigus on double in the next game. Not a great lead, but definitely not as bad as it may seem. The opponent has to land paybacks, and I believe they have to land 2 paybacks in order to take that matchup. So I'm going to immediately go into my Samurott, because technically I have a better answer in the back, and I'm going to load up on energy. My opponent goes for the Body Slam, giving me a ton of energy. And I'm gonna get both these shields back for sure. Look at how much damage that Hydro Cannon does to that Grimer. They're gonna hit me with a Sludge Bomb or a Mud Bomb. Doesn't really matter here. At this point, I've gotten a shield. I can definitely farm this thing down, especially if they decide to commit some energy, but they overfarm by a bit too much, and I'm able to get to another Hydro Cannon. That's gonna force the second shield off of the Grimer, and you already know what's gonna happen, folks. You've already seen it. The Grimer does farm me down. I can easily tank a Mud Bomb here. I can tank 2 Mud Bombs, honestly, if I want to. I'm going to commit to this farm down, and we're just going to see what the opponent's got in the back, because Primeape is going to clean house, as it always does. It's got those big fists. It's always mad. You don't mess with a Primeape because he's angry. He's like the Hulk. So Primeape's going to come into the double. The double is going to stay in and throw a move. I'm going to shield it just in case I have something in the back that doesn't want to see Primeape. My opponent comes in with a Muck, so unfortunately for me, they are going to throw a Poison type into my Primeape, and I am going to have to go for a Night Slash here, and then I can go for another Night Slash, and my opponent does not quite have the attack stat to deal with a Primeape. I actually let this go. I'm expecting to go down here. I figure maybe the Cofagrigus can two-shot the double with 2 Dark Pulses, so I decided to commit to that win condition instead because I feel like they were probably going to take out my Primeape before it got to another Night Slash, and that's going to be a good game. Well played. So Surfetched on the lead. Cornbreaker. This is actually something that I can mention about this team. Now, Primeape actually has a lower attack stat than Surfetched, which is really interesting. So after the fact, I realized that you could put Surfetched on this team and probably do better with that because it's guaranteed to win CMP over much more things. But Primeape is still... Primeape is just fun, let's be honest. I love Primeape. So, my opponent swaps in Cofagrigus into the mirror, which is a mistake. So, I plan to win this, and I plan to make sure that I have some energy and shield advantage. My opponent coming into this matchup like this is just not good. So, I'm going to let this go. I no longer need Cofagrigus. I'm going to go ahead and let Samurott come in, farm this thing down. My opponent has no shields. They have a very squishy Surfetched, and they bring in the Surfetched here, so I'm going to farm up some energy. And then my opponent, I believe they just sent in an Umbreon to try and catch that Hydro Cannon, which was not a bad play here, but I think y'all can already see what's about to happen. I'm going to come in with my Primeape to catch this foul play like an absolute Giga Chad, and then I'm going to farm up some extra energy, and what I'm looking to do here is shield once, come out of here with a couple of close combats, and just absolutely destroy the Surfetched with double close combat. I don't even think I need 2, but they do have Psychic, so I shield up correctly. Thankfully, I can farm down because I'm counting their moves. They will not get to 4 or 5 for the next move. Going for the close combat, gonna absolutely destroy the Surfetched Soul. Here we go. One-shot the Surfetched, and that's going to be a good game. Well played. And that's going to be the last battle. So thank you all so much for watching this video. You can check out my Patreon link in here. It's going to be appearing here shortly, which is where this team came into, and all my Patreon groups just slapped with this team for several days, gained a lot of points, and there's other teams as well. Tons of other opportunities to improve as a battler, so check that out. And if you're looking for some coaching, you can hit me up in Metafy. And that's going to be it for me for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.